My name is Dr. Stuart Markowitz, and as a Senior Associate Dean for Student Affairs and Admissions and Society Dean for the Charles Drew Society, it is my pleasure and privilege to serve as the Master of Ceremonies for this very special occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember to turn off or silence your phones while you're in the auditorium. We are very fortunate to have many distinguished guests in our audience. We want to acknowledge members of the Florida State Legislature, city and county governments, as well as members of the FAU leadership, FAU Board of Trustees, and College Advisory Board who are in attendance. But the real VIPs are yet to come in, and they'll be in very shortly. We also want to thank the representatives from the hospitals, our partner hospitals, and members of our affiliate and full-time faculty who contribute so much time to enrich the education of our students. And most importantly, again, we want to welcome the class of 2023. So thank you all for joining us today. So what is a white coat ceremony? The white coat ceremony is a symbolic event that was established in 1993 after a group of distinguished physicians, medical educators, and community leaders formed the Arnold P. Gold Foundation to honor Dr. Arnold P. Gold, a pediatric neurologist. The foundation concluded that the beginning of a student's journey into medicine is the best time to influence standards of professionalism, humanistic values, and behavior. In more than 140 medical schools hold these white coat ceremonies. There are many going on today across the country, and we're thrilled to be celebrating our 9th ceremony with you today. To quote Arnold Gold, "You're only half a physician if you're just good at your craft. Unless it's coupled with patient-centered care and humanism, it's suboptimal medicine." And that's his theme, and that's what's carried out through the Gold Humanism Society. At this time, I would like to ask the audience to please stand as we welcome the talented women and men who have worked so very hard to reach this milestone. Welcome, class of 2023. And I know we picked a good class because you guys actually walked in the right order. I'm very impressed. At this time, it is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Philip Wazell, Professor and Dean of the FAU Schmidt College of Medicine. We are so honored to have him as our Dean. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Wazell to the podium.
Good afternoon. Please join me in recognizing our incoming class of 2023, along with their families and significant others, as we officially welcome our newest students into the practice of medicine. Moments such as today's ceremony, in which we highlight humanism as a core value of healthcare, remind us of why we are here and why what we do is so important. In fact, it's our college's primary mission to train future generations of humanistic clinicians. This afternoon, I'll share a story that illustrates the power of humanism in medicine. But first, let's begin with a quick review of the key elements of humanistic healthcare. As Dr. Markowitz mentioned, the Gold Foundation has been instrumental to the development of the white coat ceremony. They've developed the acronym CARES to describe the key attributes of a humanistic healthcare professional. These attributes include collaboration and compassion, altruism, respect and resilience, empathy, and service. And now a story. This photo shows Mr. Peter DeMarco and his 36-year-old wife, Laura, hiking in Scotland in the summer of 2016. Just a few months later, after returning to their home in Boston, Laura suffered a devastating asthma attack. She was admitted to the intensive care unit in respiratory failure, and sadly, she died 7 days later. Shortly after her death, her husband sent a letter to her entire team of healthcare providers. He wrote, "As I begin to tell my friends and family about the 7 days you treated my wife, and what turned out to be the last days of her young life, they stop me at about the 15th name that I recall. The list includes doctors, nurses, respiratory specialists, social workers, cleaning staff members. How do you remember any of their names?" they ask. "How could I not?" I respond. Mr. DeMarco went on to write, "Every single one of you treated Laura with such professionalism and kindness and dignity as she lay unconscious. How many times did you walk into the room to find me sobbing, head down, resting on her hand, and quietly go about your task as if willing yourselves invisible? How many times did you help me set up a recliner as close as possible to her bedside? How many times did you check in on me to see whether I needed anything, food to drink, fresh clothes, or a hot shower, or to see whether I needed a better explanation of a medical procedure, or simply someone to talk to? How many times did you hug me and console me when I fell to pieces, or ask about Laura's life and the person she was, taking time to look at her photos or to read things I'd written about her? How many times did you deliver bad news with compassionate words and sadness in your eyes?" Mr. DeMarco goes on in the letter to express particular gratitude over a night when his wife's family and friends said their final goodbyes to Laura. He wrote, "One special evening, you gave me full control to usher into the ICU over 50 people in Laura's life. It was an outpouring of love that included guitar playing, opera singing, dancing, and new revelations to me about just how deeply she touched people. It was the last great night of our marriage together for both of us, and it wouldn't have happened without your support." Mr. DeMarco then expressed gratitude for a special final hour alone with his wife, writing, "There's another moment, actually a single hour that I'll never forget, explaining that on the last day of Laura's life, he asked her nurses if they could set up a hospital recliner next to her bed. Instead, they shifted Laura further to one side of the bed so he could lie beside her, and they gave the two an hour alone together." Mr. DeMarco concludes his letter by writing, "I will remember that last hour for the rest of my life. It was a gift beyond gifts, and I have all of you to thank for it." Clearly, this is a sad story, Much of humanistic healthcare is not. Nevertheless, I chose to share this story today because it illustrates, one, that the practice of medicine is a sacred trust between caregivers, patients, and their families, and two, to remind us that care is always possible, even when cure is not. Today's ceremony is both solemn and joyful. We are now officially transitioning from the tearful tissue zone into a celebration of this important milestone on your paths to becoming physicians. And speaking of joy, I'm absolutely delighted to share the news that for each of our class of 2023 students, the Palm Beach County Medical Society has generously donated new stethoscopes. This gift reflects donations from over 50 members of the society and its community partners. Please join me in a round of appreciative applause for the Palm Beach County Medical Society. Including Society Board President and incoming President, Drs. Mark Hirsch and Larry Bush, as well as the Services Board President, our very own Dr. Michael Dennis, who also serves as Chair of the College of Medicine Advisory Board and a member of the FAU Board of Trustees. So now let us return to the focus of today's event, the white coat. To our newest students, my message is a simple one. Today and every day forward, remember, the power of the white coat lies in how you conduct yourself while wearing it. Again, the power of the white coat lies in how you conduct yourself while wearing it. Now, earlier in the presentation, I mentioned the role of the Gold Foundation in developing the Gold ceremony. Now I'd like to remind you of 3 additional G's, gratitude, grace, and grit, to ensure that you maintain your humanism, even in the most challenging circumstances. The first G is for gratitude. As you may know, there's growing evidence that gratitude improves overall health and well-being for both patients and doctors. In the words of Dr. Stephen Buteau, lying at the heart of what it means to be a doctor, gratitude can motivate doctors from within. Grateful doctors feel good about themselves. They feel connected to others, and they enjoy serving people who need them. The second G is for grace. In the words of Dr. Thomas Duffy, the secular equivalent of grace in medicine lies in responding to the call of others and giving not only our knowledge, but also of ourselves. Just 2 weeks ago, my wife Ellen and I attended the Gold Foundation's annual reception. There we had the privilege to listen to the powerful story shared by Dr. Rana Audish, an ICU physician who suddenly found herself an ICU patient in critical condition. In her best-selling memoir, In Shock, she writes, "From my new vantage point in an ICU bed, I would begin to sense a dark hole at the center of a flurry of what was otherwise highly proficient, astoundingly skillful care. I couldn't name it at first. I'd have glimpses of clarity, only to have it recede out of focus. I had to train myself to see it like negative space on a painting canvas. It took me years of being a patient to understand that though the healing potential of knowledge is magical, medicine cannot heal in a vacuum. It requires connection." And the third and final G is for grit, a term defined by psychologist Angela Duckworth as a combination of passion and perseverance that's a leading indicator of success. In her book, Grit, she writes, "I won't just have a job, I'll have a calling. I'll challenge myself every day. When I get down, I'll knock myself and get myself back up. Grit is having stamina. Grit is living life like a marathon and not a sprint." Medicine is indeed a calling, and it is a marathon rather than a sprint. The sustained practice of humanistic medicine requires gratitude, a constant appreciation of the privilege of caring for others. Grace, a willingness to respond to the call of others by giving of our knowledge and ourselves. And grit, passion and perseverance towards upholding the sacred trust with our patients. Congratulations to the class of 2023 as you begin your journeys today toward becoming humanistic physicians. It's now my pleasure and privilege to introduce President John Kelly, whose visionary leadership is bringing FAU to new heights.
Thank you, Dean Boiselle. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today. It's a special time for us, a season of departure and a season of arrival. I stood on the stage 2 days ago and shook 2,700 hands saying goodbye to students who have been at this university. The beautiful thing about that audience was that 40% of the people sitting in these chairs over those 4 ceremonies were the first person in their family to ever go to college. So they have set a new benchmark, a new milestone, a new aspiration for all of those that come after them. And I had the privilege last week of hearing 4 of you young people speaking in front of an audience of donors that were supporting you on your journey that you're about to embark upon. And the incredible presence you had as you spoke so eloquently from the stage in thanking those people that were supporting you, I think speaks so well for this class. You faced enormous odds as well. Today, we all come together to mark the beginning of a new journey for 67 students who've come to FAU from across the state and across the nation to pursue careers in the healing arts. The fact that the physician's craft is as much art as it is science is beautifully signified by the Humanism and Medicine lapel pins that each of you will receive today. And I want to thank the Gold Foundation for providing the pins and for inspiring universities across the country to welcome medical students with ceremonies like this, which emphasize the importance of caring as well as curing in the practice of medicine. I also want to express my personal thanks. Every year since I've been here, Dr. Michael Dennis has generously supported the reception that will follow the ceremony today. As the founding chair of the Charles E. Schmidt College of Medicine Advisory Board, Dr. Dennis has played an enormously important role in building our medical education programs at FAU. His valuable service to the university also continues as a member of our Board of Trustees for the institution, and we truly appreciate his support of FAU and the Schmidt College of Medicine. Dr. Dennis is not well today and unfortunately will not be able to be with us, but his thoughts and prayers are with you for your success as you move through your journey. You are truly, as I said, an extraordinary group of students, selected from more than 3,500 applicants for these 67 positions that you occupy. Imagine the odds of you being here. You began your journey at whatever age that you started your pursuit of this opportunity. And while you come from varying backgrounds, you have an overarching issue in common. You share a passion to become physicians who will spend your lives helping others. I look forward to again being on this stage 4 years from now, when I'll have the great privilege of shaking your hands as you are presented your MD degrees and proudly calling you doctor for the first time. Congratulations, Charles E. Schmidt College of Medicine, class of 2023. Welcome to the FAU family.
Thank you, President Kelly. It is now my pleasure to introduce my partner in Student Affairs, Assistant Dean for Student Affairs, Dr. Jennifer Caceres, who will introduce the keynote speaker. Jennifer.
I have the great pleasure of introducing today's keynote speaker, Dr. Elizabeth Gunderson. Dr. Gunderson is an assistant professor of hospice and palliative medicine at the Charles E. Schmidt College of Medicine at Florida Atlantic University. She earned her medical degree from the Medical College of Virginia. During college and medical school, Dr. Gunderson spent extensive time volunteering in the United States and Central America. Those experiences fueled a lifelong passion for caring for the vulnerable population. Dr. Gunderson completed a residency in family medicine at UMass Memorial Medical Center. After residency, she practiced rural primary care and instituted several new women's health services so that women would not have to travel long distances for common procedures. She was also one of the first providers in Massachusetts to provide office-based treatment for patients suffering from addiction. Dr. Gunderson later became a hospital medicine physician and served as Associate Division Chief of Hospital Medicine for UMass Memorial Healthcare. She was also a physician quality officer and led initiatives focused on improving the care of older adults throughout the UMass system and surrounding communities. She went on to pursue a fellowship training in hospice and palliative medicine at the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine and is board certified in both family medicine and hospice and palliative medicine. Dr. Gunderson worked as Director of Palliative Care for TrustBridge Incorporated in West Palm Beach until 2014 when she joined the faculty of the Schmidt College of Medicine. In 2016, she was elected by students to the Gold Humanism Honor Society, and in 2017 and 2018, she received the award for Outstanding Mentor of the Year. Her current roles at the Schmidt College of Medicine include Director of the Ethics, Professionalism, and Professional Identity Curriculum, Founding Director of the Hospice and Palliative Medicine Fellowship, and Head Learning Community Advisor, mentoring students across their 4 years of medical education. Dr. Gunderson has held national positions with the American Academy of Hospice and Palliative Medicine and the Society of Hospital Medicine. She has written book chapters on end-of-life care and has been an invited speaker on this topic both locally and nationally. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Elizabeth Gunderson.
Sometimes you have to take off your white coat. Now, I suppose telling you to take off your white coat before you even put on your white coat is maybe a questionable theme for a white coat ceremony. Last week, Dr. Markowitz asked me what I was going to be talking about, and I didn't have the heart to tell him. For this to make sense, I need to tell you about Elizabeth. Not me. I'm not doing the dramatic talk about myself in third person thing. This is another Elizabeth, someone who has taught me lessons that I want to pass along to you. This Elizabeth is 90 years old. Several years ago, her husband of over a half-century died. Despite that loss, and maybe because of it, she volunteers her time to the medical school as a standardized patient in our end-of-life care simulation, where our third-year medical students must break the news to her that she, the patient in this scenario, is dying. Elizabeth is a former school principal, and her love of teaching shows. She talks openly about her husband's death, and she tells the students that oftentimes it's their compassion and not their medical knowledge that is most important in caring for patients. I've heard her put it this way: sometimes you have to take off your white coat. Now, I love the white coat ceremony. It's transformative. When you put on your white coat and recite the oath you wrote this week, we are inviting you into the medical profession, and you are vowing to practice medicine with as much humanism as scientific excellence. To put on your white coat is to begin your journey walking side by side with your patients. But I'm going to tell you something crucial. Your white coat is sacred and special because of what you bring to it. Your identity as a doctor is not supposed to replace your identity as a person. The two are supposed to meld so that they become a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. So when Elizabeth says, and when I say to you today, sometimes you have to take off your white coat, what we really mean is, don't let your white coat make you forget you're human. Don't let it be a barrier to connecting with your patients. Don't be so worried about showing up as a doctor that you forget to show up as a person. Superheroes have super suits that they put on in times of trouble. Wonder Woman has a lasso of truth and bulletproof cuffs, but it's her warrior spirit and big heart that make her special. Your super suit is your white coat, but what you bring to it is even more important. So sometimes you have to take off your white coat. You have to invest in yourself as well as your studies, because if you neglect yourself, you won't be able to doctor. You have to embrace your own humanity. You have to keep writing your own story so that you can connect with others and their stories. I interviewed some of you when you applied to medical school. I read your applications and I saw all the unique things about you. In this class of students, we have volleyball players and salsa dancers. We have at least 2 students who specialize in baking chocolate mousse. Bonus. We have students who are solar eclipse obsessed and others who want to make their apartments into greenhouses. Keep writing your story. Sometimes you have to take off your white coat. And you have to be deliberate about it. No one is going to take off your white coat for you. It's not going to take itself off. Don't tell yourself that you'll get around to it when you're less busy. That day may never come. I think everyone in this auditorium would tell you that life has a way of getting busier and busier. And as a hospice doctor, I can tell you, life is too short. When I was a medical student, I don't think I was very good at taking off my white coat. I look back and I remember studying pretty much all the time. And also perfecting my rice and beans recipe because it's something you could eat for dinner every night on a med student budget. For those students out there who are thinking your recipe is better, it's on. I did better at taking off my white coat during the summer after my first year of medical school when I visited Central America to study Spanish and do volunteer work. I found a program in Guatemala that promised to give you as realistic a look at life there as they could. Other programs guarantee you'll have running water, they said. We pretty much guarantee you won't. And in fact, I lived with a wonderful host family in a rickety house with no running water. I got scabies. I suffered the consequences of accidentally drinking a glass of water from the wrong place. Don't worry, no further details. But I was hooked. I ended up taking a year off in between my 3rd and 4th years of medical school and spent most of it in Central America. It was my way of taking off my white coat. Those months I spent immersed in a culture different than my own taught me so much. I experienced many wonderful things, and I also still remember the anxiety I felt when I was a patient relying on a translator, being told that in order to cure my skin infection, I would need to wash all my clothes in hot water. Hot water, I thought. I don't even have running water. It was such a small thing compared with what many of our patients experience, but nevertheless, it helped make me the doctor I am today. Come to my office and you'll see a framed collage of pictures from my time abroad. It's a daily reminder to think about how I'm living my life and what I'm bringing to my white coat and my patients. Lest your families are wondering exactly how long you're going to spend in medical school, you don't have to take a year off and leave the country to take off your white coat. But you need to be mindful, to write, to go out with your friends, to play sports, to read a book that doesn't talk about physiology. Yes, your studies are critical and you'll have to make sacrifices and adjustments. One of our second-year students is a fierce Ironman competitor who realized he wouldn't be able to train and compete to the same extent he used to. So instead, he dominated every charity run in the area last year. He also gets left out of carpools because his classmates assume he's just running everywhere. Do the things that nourish your soul and give you joy. Over the course of the next few years, you'll see me sneak pictures of my extracurricular activities into my lecture slides: scuba diving, skiing, riding a motorcycle. These are not to rub it in that I've been on vacation. They are to remind you that it's important to have a life outside of medicine. I've been working on this for 20 years now and still trying to master it, so start practicing now. Sometimes you have to take off your white coat. But why is that so important, really? When you all interviewed here, one of the questions you probably got was something along the lines of, why do you want to be a doctor? Most of your answers were some combination of liking science and wanting to help people. But that wasn't the end of it. You all told stories from your lives about a patient or an experience that touched you deeply. A story where you were connected to your own humanity and the humanity of others. Keep those connections. Medicine has its limits we are constantly pushing back with research, innovation, and advocacy. But at any given moment at the bedside, you may run up against a limit that your white coat cannot push beyond. You may have a patient who is so sick and so complicated that you don't know what to do, and you will feel like you have failed. You may have a patient without insurance whose barriers to care seem insurmountable. You may have a patient that has been labeled difficult because he doesn't follow the treatment plan. You may have a patient who will die no matter what you do. The Krebs cycle will not help you in those moments. Neither will detailed medical explanations or technical terms. In those moments, you have to take off your white coat. You can always be a healer. You can always comfort the sick. You can always help. You can push beyond the limits. You can break down barriers by connecting with your patients, sit with them, be present for them, partner with them. Listening to your patients and feeling with them can be the most powerful medicine you have. Once when I was a resident physician and working a shift in the pediatric emergency room, a boy and his mother came in. The boy was around 12 years old. He had had fevers off and on for a month, no other symptoms, no other findings. He wasn't sick enough to be admitted to the hospital, so the supervising physician told me to send him home. I had hit a limit. I told his mom that we couldn't find anything wrong, but that didn't mean there wasn't. I told her to please come back if anything changed. She knew I was concerned and that I believed in her instincts as a mother. The next night, the same boy and his mother came back to the emergency room. This time, one of the boy's eyes was bulging out of its socket. Now that I had a place to look, I ordered diagnostics and found an abscess in his brain. I felt terrible. Technically, I had done nothing wrong, but it sure felt like I had. How could I have missed something like that? But as the boy was being wheeled off to surgery, his mother drew me aside. "You've been wonderful," she said, "and my son wants to know if you would be his doctor while he's in the hospital." I was stunned. The boy and his mother didn't see me as a failure. They saw me as a person who cared, who believed in them, and who advocated for them. Sometimes you have to take off your white coat. The boy did just fine. Another time I talked to a man, and by the way, as the ethics professor, I'd like to clarify that I've altered these stories to protect patient confidentiality. I talked to a man whose wife had suffered a devastating stroke several months earlier. She was only in her 50s, but she was now in a state where she was dependent on life support and spent her time being shuttled back and forth between a nursing home and the hospital. The medical team was struggling because they felt it would be more compassionate to take the patient off life support and allow her to die peacefully. They couldn't understand why her husband wouldn't do so. I sat down with the husband and asked how he was. "This must be so hard," I said. I commented on his wife's beautiful skin, and he proudly told me how he spent 15 minutes every day massaging lotion into each limb. 15 minutes on the right arm, 15 minutes on the left, 15 minutes on the right leg, 15 minutes on the left. I asked to see pictures of his wife from before her stroke. His eyes lit up and he showed me pictures from his cell phone. Her graduating from nursing school, her with their 3 kids. We talked for a while, and he confessed that he couldn't sleep at night knowing she was in this condition. But their children kept begging him to keep her alive. He was facing the agonizing choice between doing what he thought was right and risking being alienated from his children. On the surface, nothing changed in the patient's care that day, but at the end, the patient's husband couldn't stop thanking me. "No doctor has ever talked to me this way," he said. "When we left each other, neither one of us felt frustrated or angry or alone. We felt like we had connected as two people, and I'd like to think that was a turning point in that family's journey." You'll be amazed at how many times patients will want you to be their doctor, not because of your white coat, but because of the caring, curiosity, and compassion underneath it. Sometimes you have to take off your white coat. As it turns out, the ability to connect with others, to be present with them, to validate them in their experience, to be curious and not judgmental, those are your real superpowers. Medicine can be hard at times for patients and for doctors and for you in your training. I remember when one of our students started to feel like something was missing in her third year. She decided to spend extra time with her patients in the afternoons after rounds. She visited each of her patients with 15 minutes and sat and talked with them with one rule for herself: they could talk about anything except medicine. The student remembered again what doctoring was all about, and she helped patients feel like people and not like their diseases. Oftentimes, medical students suffer from imposter syndrome, the sense that you're not offering patients anything worthwhile. Oh, you are. You will be the best listeners and handholders and patient advocates. You will change one patient's day just by asking how she's doing and listening, and you will change many patients' lives by using your compassion and drive to make healthcare better for everyone. Sometimes you have to take off your white coat. Before I conclude, I'd like to introduce you to the remarkable woman who inspired this talk by reminding me that sometimes we have to take off our white coats, Mrs. Elizabeth Ide. Elizabeth, will you please stand so we can recognize you? Thank you. I'd like to finish with a thought from Mary Oliver. In case you're not familiar with Mary Oliver, she was a popular American poet who died this past year. These are the last two lines of Mary Oliver's poem, A Summer Day. These lines ask a question, and I hope this question inspires you to think about who you want to be as a doctor and as a person, and what you're bringing to your white coat when you put it on today and every day. And so I ask you, in the words of Mary Oliver, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gunderson, for your truly moving remarks. You have given our students much to ponder as to how they will want to be remembered as physicians and human beings. Thank you so much. Incoming class of 2023, you're now beginning your journey to follow in the footsteps of many selfless physicians and many others who have served humanity in countless ways. We're now ready to welcome each of our 67 students to the medical profession and officially cloak them with their first doctor's white coat. Students are represented by two societies, the Elizabeth Blackwell Society, led by Dr. Jennifer Caceres, Society Dean for the Elizabeth Blackwell Society, and by myself, my society, the Charles Drew Society. 8 years ago, our inaugural class named these societies Elizabeth Blackwell and Charles Drew because these pioneering physicians represent an ideal in medicine and service to humanity, which you're going to learn about. These academic societies serve as the organizational framework for each student's experience at the Charles E. Schmidt College of Medicine and are supervised by their own faculty members and administrative staff. As part of our ceremony this afternoon, our second-year medical students, a class of 2022, hi guys, our terrific class of 2022, have assigned themselves to members of our incoming class and will serve as mentors, providing sage advice, support, and guidance that are critical during the first year of medical school. As a symbol of this pairing, the 67 students receiving their white coats today will also be pinned with a Humanism in Medicine lapel pin. The Humanism in Medicine lapel pins have been generously provided to us by the Arnold P. Gold Foundation. Before we get started, I'd like to invite the following individuals to join me on the stage: Dr. Philip Boiselle, Dr. Sarah Wood, our beloved Senior Associate Dean for Medical Education, Dr. Jennifer Caceres, Monica Lopez, and Annie Thomas. Please come up on the stage. We're going to begin with the members of the Elizabeth Blackwell Society. Before we get started, I would like to invite Brianna Paiwanski, a second-year medical student and president of the Elizabeth Blackwell Society, to join me at the podium. Brianna will provide a brief overview of Dr. Blackwell and why our students selected her to represent one of our two societies. Brianna?
Hi, my name is Brianna Paiwanski, and I'm the president of the Elizabeth Blackwell Society. As new students at the Charles E. Schmidt College of Medicine, Blackwell is a name you'll be hearing regularly, so it's important you understand who she actually was. Dr. Blackwell was first beginning her medical career, there were many who doubted her abilities. During her time in school, she managed to not just earn the respect from her peers and professors, but also inspire those around her to hold themselves to a higher standard. She graduated at the top of her class in 1849 and became the first woman to earn a medical degree from an American medical school. After graduating, Dr. Blackwell moved to Europe to gain more experience studying midwifery in London and Paris before returning to the US 2 years later. Soon after she returned, she opened an infirmary for women and children, which she later expanded to also serve as a nurses' training facility with the help of her younger sister, Dr. Emily Blackwell. In 1869, Dr. Blackwell returned to London to help establish and then teach at the London School of Medicine for Women, where she spent the rest of her medical career. This further accentuates her legacy of not only being the first female doctor in the US and Britain, but also making sure that more would be able to follow in her footsteps. It is for this reason that one of our two academic societies was named the Elizabeth Blackwell Society. Much like the society's namesake, our college believes that not gender, but traits such as professionalism, leadership, and compassion are what determine whether or not someone will be a good doctor, and that a career in medicine is something that everyone should have an equal opportunity to pursue.
Thank you, Brianna. Students, these coats symbolize your entry into the medical profession and your commitment to uphold the highest ethical and professional standards. This white coat is the uniform of the healer, and you will slip your arm into its sleeves and tuck its fabric cover over your shoulders. As you wait for your name to be called, you wonder how you'll look in your new coat as you walk across one of the world's great stages. The sleeves may be too long, likely in many cases they will, the shoulders too broad, but there's a more important question to ponder. How will you measure up when you put on the coat every day after this one? So let's get started. As your name is called, please come onto the stage on your right and then exit the stage to your left. As you exit the stage, you will receive your Humanism and Medicine lapel pin from the class of 2022. Audience, please hold your applause until the robing is complete, and for safety reasons, please keep the aisles clear while the students are processing. Thank you. Abhimanyu Ahuja. Amaris Alian. Alexandria Barnes. Sierra Biastri. Shimron Brown. Sierra Koning. Rana Dabiri. Victoria Dannon. Jamshed Desai. Lindsay Fisher. Talia Hammer. Isaiah Herrera. Emilio Hospitalis. Ria Jane. Elena Kelly. Nicole Levin. Zymary Manessis. Stu Newman. Sai Pilati. Tanya Farouk Panwala. Monica Perdomo. Scott Russo. Anthony Sanchez. Ned Shashua. Stephen Sheba. Shad Somerville. Samantha Shigerick. Abby Temple. Lila Tao. Nika Vafadara. Anna Winan. Michelle Weinberg. Kai Yoshinaga. Okay, congratulations, members of the Elizabeth Blackwell Society. Dr. Caceres will now change places with me as we get ready to cloak the members of the Charles Drew Society.
Good afternoon. It is truly an honor to be here today and to be part of this very special ceremony. At this time, I would like to invite Alec McKinnon to join me at the podium so that Alec can provide a brief overview as to why our students were inspired to select Dr. Charles Drew to represent one of our two societies.
Good afternoon. My name is Alec McKinnon, and I'm the president of the Charles Drew Society here at the FAU Charles E. Schmidt College of Medicine. Dr. Charles Drew was a pioneer in the medical field. As an African American, Dr. Drew overcame numerous roadblocks, setting a working example for the progress that could be made not only in the medical field, but throughout society. Dr. Drew earned his medical degree at the McGill School of Medicine. After graduating, Dr. Drew joined the faculty at Howard University College of Medicine, eventually becoming chief surgical resident at Freedman's Hospital. While working further towards a doctorate in medical science at Columbia University, being the first African American to receive such an honor there, Dr. Drew fell under the wings of prominent physicians Edward Lee Howes and Alan Whipple. Dr. Drew established his place in research of treating shock, fluid balance, blood chemistry, and preservation and transfusion. With this, he was able to open an experimental blood bank at New York Presbyterian, founded on the ability for blood to be processed, preserved, and transported for longer periods of time. In September of 1940, Dr. Drew was called to direct the Blood for Britain project to assist Great Britain in World War II. He collected donations of blood from almost 15,000 people, saving thousands of lives of both military personnel and civilians. Dr. Drew unified the procedures and standards for collecting and processing blood plasma. While performing this amazing feat, Dr. Drew also became the first African American appointed as an examiner for the American Board of Surgery. With the end of Blood for Britain in January of 1941, Dr. Drew was appointed as assistant director of a pilot for a national blood banking system, which ultimately led to the creation of the American Red Cross Blood Bank. Following the war, Dr. Drew sought to raise the standards for black medical education and to embrace black physicians in the medical sphere. He devoted himself to training and mentoring medical students and surgical residents upon his return to Howard University and Freedman's Hospital as chair of the Department of Surgery and chief of surgery. As Dr. Charles Drew once said, "So much of our energy is spent in overcoming the constricting environment in which we live that little energy is left for creating new ideas or things. It should be the aim of every student in science to knock down at least one or two bricks of this wall by virtue of his own accomplishment." I hope that as new members of the Charles Drew Society, you will continue his legacy as diligent and compassionate doctors, especially in the face of opposition.
Thank you, Alec. Let us now continue with our white coat ceremony with the cloaking of the members of the Charles Drew Society. Students, as your names are called, please come onto the stage on your right and then exit the stage to your left. As you exit the stage, you will receive your Humanism and Medicine lapel pin. Audience, please hold your applause until the robing is complete for safety reasons. Please keep the aisles clear while the students are processing. Thank you. Aisha Abid. Tara Aliasan. Stephanie Bion. Gregory Demirjian. Jenna Durant. Monica Espinoza. Ben Fiedler. Sabina Friedman. Alex Gorishi. Michelle Gonzalez. Bob Grady. Joel Grunhut. Shravya Gurvi Reddy Gari. Carson Heron. Marwa Hussein. Mitch Johansson. Layla Haisumi Kori. Zachary Kravitz. Mia Lamb.
I can see one camera.
Yeah, I'm getting yours right now.
Gabriel Lama.
It is.
Michael Medlin. Ahmed Noor. Jim Pagliasetti. Sarah Palumbo. Daniela Ramos Delgado. Yasmina Samaha. Nadia Seal. Heather Tier. Bree Turner. Nicholas Uhueta. Taylor Van Helmen. Anna Vidovsky. Andrew Wong. Matthew Zinner. I officially welcome our class of 2023 to the Schmidt College of Medicine, to the medical community, and to Florida Atlantic University. Thank you, Dr. Boiselle and Dr. Wood. You may now return to your seats. Dr. Marquis, please join me at the podium for the Charles E. Schmidt College of Medicine oath. Following a week-long orientation, our students have worked collectively to create their own oath, a code of conduct that they are committed to following throughout their education and as physicians after completion of medical school. At this time, our students will recite their own oath in unison, led by Aisha Abid, who was chosen by the class as a representative for this important part of the ceremony. Aisha, please join me at the podium for the class of 2023 oath. Ladies and gentlemen, only the students will recite their oath. However, I do call your attention to the screens behind me. Students, please rise.
Good afternoon. As the students of Charles E. Schmidt College of Medicine, class of 2023, we pledge to provide compassionate and empathetic care by practicing humanistic medicine, create a community that promotes trust, professionalism, and respect for patients, colleagues, and ourselves, while always upholding the integrity of the medical profession. Maintain our physical and emotional well-being in order to provide the highest standards of care. Recognize our limitations through humility and reflection. Foster a collaborative and supportive interdisciplinary environment. Care for the individual through a holistic approach. Transcend cultural barriers and advocate for inclusion. Dedicate ourselves to the pursuit of lifelong learning. Demonstrate gratitude to our loved ones for their endless support and unconditional encouragement. By embodying these tenets, we will commit ourselves to a life that will bring honor to our profession. Thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Please be seated.
Congratulations, class of 2023, and to your family and friends who are here today to share this momentous occasion with you. The white coats you're wearing today have all been sponsored by the very generous members of our community at large and our university community through a special fundraising event called White Coats for Care, co-chaired by Bonnie and John Kay of Kay Communications, and vital scholarship funds have been raised through the White Coats for Care program. Students, please check inside your right pocket to see who has sponsored your white coat. At the reception following the ceremony, you'll be able to see many of those who have generously given in support of the class of 2023. Once again, thanks to the Palm Beach County Medical Society for generously donating those beautiful new stethoscopes to each member of the class of 2023. We're also most grateful for the continued support from Dick and Barbara Schmidt and the Schmidt Family Foundation for their vision of a biomedical science program and a medical school at Florida Atlantic University, and to all of you for your continued support of our students and our college. We'd like to say a special thank you again. He's probably hopefully watching the webcast, to the advisory board chairman, Dr. Michael Dennis, for graciously underwriting the reception this evening. Dr. Dennis has supported the creation and growth of the college from the beginning, and without his vision and support, we would not be here today. Thank you, Michael. We're now ready to conclude our ceremony. Class of 2023, you've received your first doctor's white coat, and you've now placed yourself in the service of humankind. A huge part of communication, as Dr. Gunderson talked about, is nonverbal. We know this from love. So although key verbal communication skills are required, body language must also be learned. Touching communicates caring, compassion, and reassurance. So hold the patient's hand, hug them, sit on their bed, and cry with them. Let them see that you care. Allow yourself to be vulnerable and suffer with them. The relationship with a patient and family is an intimate one, and it requires cultivation. Nonverbal communication takes practice. Studies have shown that medical students become much less compassionate as they end their 4 years of medical school. Our goal at the Charles E. Schmidt College of Medicine is to not let that happen. We don't want you to fall into that predicament that can happen to so many medical students. So I'm going to give you a quotation, with the apologies to the faculty who've heard me say this before, to a quotation from an internist physician at Mass General by the name of Dr. Catherine Treadway. She says, "When I was a third-year medical student doing my pediatric rotation, I was walking down the hospital corridor with my intern one night, making rounds on the recent admissions. He stopped at the door of a patient who I knew was not on our service. But he said, 'I need to see this patient and her family. I know them because she's been here several times this year.' When we walked into the room, I saw a 7-year-old girl lying on a bed. She was breathing the loud, liquid breaths I would come to know as the death rattle. Her skin was brilliantly yellow, her abdomen massively swollen from the Wilms tumor, kidney tumor that was killing her. She had no hair. It was the effects of her many bouts of chemotherapy, and her limbs were stick thin. With her were her parents and both sets of grandparents. When we walked in, her mother stood up. My intern walked over to her, put his arms around her, and they stood silently holding each other. And they did this for a while. After a few minutes, the mother stepped back and, looking at her daughter, at the unbearable scene before her, said, 'You know, I never thought I would want her to die, but I want her to die. Somehow I pictured her in a field of flowers and she'd just be gone. I never thought it would be like this.' My intern taught me a profoundly important lesson that night. Many doctors would have walked by that door because everything had been done. The diagnosis had been made, the correct treatment was given, the complications appropriately treated, and now the girl was dying and there was nothing more to do. What my intern taught me that night was that there was one more thing to do. Go into that room and offer whatever comfort his care and concern could bring, and to bear witness to the pain of the family. In the end, it was as important as anything else that had been done for that child. In the long years ahead, if you ask the mother what she remembered of that time, I suspect that one memory would be my intern holding her. The lesson he taught me was that in the practice of medicine, the person you are is as important as what you know. This is one of the extraordinary things about medicine. It's an intensely intellectual endeavor, demanding that you learn and understand an enormous amount of information, and you're constantly updating that information as new knowledge becomes available. But it's also an endeavor of the heart. At the same time you're learning about disease and diagnosis and treatment, you're learning about illness, the patient, and yourself. Medicine is, after all, a labor of love. It's a calling and not a job. It's a life of service rather than a life of servility. It's about the people in your community. The love you give them is returned immeasurably to the physician. You have the chance to become fully immersed in the love of a place, your home. You become an integral part of that community, and you are loved as part of the architecture or as the ancient landscape, a point of light in a brilliant and magnificent constellation. Colleagues, you have chosen a noble profession, and we are very proud of you. We wish you every success in your education, training, and in your life as a physician. This is the first step in a journey that at times will seem long, but trust me, it goes by fast, and it will be exciting, frustrating, but will be the most fantastic journey you will ever take. And speaking for the faculty, I welcome you on this journey. On behalf of the Charles E. Schmidt College of Medicine and Florida Atlantic University, we thank all of our distinguished guests here today and our students and their families and friends for attending this very special event and bearing witness as our students begin the lifelong journey of becoming physicians. Audience, I ask you to please remain seated until our faculty and all the students have exited the auditorium. Please join us for a special reception to celebrate the class of 2023 in the Live Oak Pavilion. Thank you for joining us today.